Questions. My dear friend, if your happiness depends on when, it will never come to now. We live in a world where we chase happiness like a butterfly. And the funny thing is, the more we run after it, questions, the further it flies away. But when we sit still, when we learn to be happy every day, the butterfly gently lands on our shoulder. And so today, questions. Let's talk about how to learn to be happy every single day, not someday. You don't need a PhD in philosophy to be happy. You just need a little gratitude. Every morning when you wake up, questions. Instead of saying, "Oh God, it's morning," say, "Oh God, it's morning." The same words, different feelings. Gratitude turns ordinary mornings into blessings. Questions. Try this every night before sleeping. List 3 things you are grateful for. Even on the worst day. Questions. You'll find at least one, and that's enough to shift your mind from complaining to contentment. The fastest way to lose happiness is comparison. Questions. We scroll through social media and think, look at them, they're on vacation. Look at their new car. Look at their perfect smile. But we forget, nobody posts their failures. Questions, only their filters. Happiness begins the day you stop comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. A man once told me, "Swamiji, I have everything. A good job, house, questions, a car, but I still feel empty." I asked him, "When was the last time you made someone else smile?" He said, "Questions. It's been a while." And that's the secret. Happiness doesn't grow by taking more. It grows by giving more. If you want to feel rich, questions. Count how many lives you can touch, not how many digits are in your bank account. A life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we respond. Someone insults you, and if you react, questions, they control your happiness. If you respond calmly, you control it. Next time someone tries to press your buttons, questions, just smile and say, "Thank you for testing my patience. I needed the practice." Some people don't need enemies, they have their own mind. It keeps them awake all night. Questions, replaying every mistake, every worry, every what if. Remember, overthink is the art of creating problems that don't exist. When your mind runs wild, tell it, "Dear mind," questions, "thank you for your suggestions, but I'll handle it." For peace doesn't come from controlling your thoughts. It comes from not letting them control you. Questions. Holding grudges is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When you forgive, you free yourself. Happiness is heavy to carry with anger in your heart. Questions. So forgive, not because they were right, but because you deserve lightness. People live in 3 time zones: past, full of regrets; future, full of worries; present, rarely visited. Questions. But happiness only has one address: now. When you eat, when you talk. When you live. We complicate our lives with unnecessary wants. Happiness is not found in having more things, questions, but needing less. You don't have to own the whole ocean. Sometimes one drop of peace is enough. Simplify your life. Declutter your mind, your space, your relationship. Questions. We take life so seriously, as if anyone gets out alive. Sometimes laugh at your own mistakes, at your own chaos. Humor heals. When you can laugh at yourself, questions, nothing in the world can truly defeat you. Happiness comes from connection. When we disconnect from others, from our purpose, and from God, emptiness enters. Spend time with loved ones. Questions. Do work that has meaning. Pray, meditate, reflect. Because happiness isn't found in isolation. It blossoms in connection. Questions. Let me tell you something very simple but very powerful. Gratitude is not just a word you say. It's a way you live. We live in a world where we are taught to chase what we don't have. Questions. Not cherish what we do have. From childhood we are told. Questions. Study hard so you can get a better school. Then work hard so you can get a better job. Then earn more so you can buy a better car. And then buy a house, settle down, questions. And then you'll be happy. But you know what happens? We keep climbing the mountain of expectations, but we forget to enjoy the view. Questions. Happiness becomes like the horizon, always a little further away. Gratitude brings the horizon closer. It reminds us that joy is not in reaching the top. Questions, but in appreciating every step along the way. Let's look at a simple example from daily life. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. The first person bangs the steering wheel, muttering, questions. Why does this always happen to me? His blood pressure goes up, his mood goes down. The second person sitting in the same jam takes a breath and says, at least I have a car. Questions. At least I'm safe, at least I have a place to go. Same situation, different mind. The first is frustrated, the second is grateful. The traffic didn't change, the thinking did. Questions. Gratitude transforms ordinary moments into blessings. We often wake up and immediately check our phones, messages, emails, notifications. But when was the last time we woke up and simply said, questions? Thank you for another day. Just that one line, thank you for another day, can shift your energy completely. Think about it, some people didn't wake up this morning. If you did, questions, you already have a reason to smile. There's a story I love sharing. One day, a man visited a monk and said, I have everything, a job, a house, a family, but still I'm not happy. Questions. Why? The monk smiled and handed him a glass of water. Then he put 1 spoon of salt into it and asked him to taste. The man tasted it and said, it's bitter. The monk then took him to a lake. Questions. Put the same spoon of salt into it and asked him to taste again. The man said, this time it's fresh. The monk smiled and said, my dear questions. Life's problems are like salt. They are the same for everyone. The amount of bitterness you taste depends on how big your heart is. Questions. Be grateful, and your heart will become like the lake. When gratitude expands your heart, the problems don't disappear, but they stop controlling your happiness. You see, questions. Gratitude is not about ignoring pain. It's about finding light even in the middle of darkness. Even when things go wrong, you can still say, questions. I'm thankful for the lessons. That doesn't mean you deny your struggles. It means you choose not to let them define you. Every day, questions. Life gives us 1,000 small gifts. The morning sunlight, the laughter of a friend, the food on our plate, the roof above our head. But we often treat these blessings as background noise. Questions. Gratitude is when you turn that noise into music. Once, I met a man who had lost his eyesight in an accident. He told me, Swamiji, when I could see, I never looked at the sunset properly. Questions. Now that I can't, I realize what I took for granted. His words hit me deeply. We only learn the value of something after it's gone. Gratitude teaches us to value it while it's still here. Questions. So here's a small practice you can try every night before sleeping. Questions. Think of 3 things that made your day better. Even if it's as simple as, I had a nice cup of tea, someone smiled at me, or I reached home safely. This practice rewires your mind. Questions. Slowly you'll start noticing good things automatically. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances. It changes your perception. When you start your day with gratitude, questions, you carry a different energy, a lightness, a peace. You stop complaining about what's missing and start celebrating what's present. And here's the magic. Questions. When you celebrate what you already have, life gives you more to celebrate. Think of a child. Give a child a small chocolate, and they'll smile, hug you, and say, questions. Thank you. That gratitude makes you want to give them more. But if they throw it away saying, I wanted a bigger one, you'll hesitate to give again. Life works exactly like that. Questions. When you show gratitude, life says you're ready for more. Sometimes people ask me, Swamiji, how can I be grateful when my life is full of problems? And I tell them questions. Don't be grateful for the problem, be grateful in spite of the problem. Because that attitude gives you strength. Gratitude is not for perfect days, questions. It's for imperfect days handled with grace. If you have food, a place to sleep, someone who cares for you, and health to move, you're already richer than millions, questions. But if you forget to be thankful, you'll always feel poor no matter how much you have. In life, two people can have the same situation. One sees it as a curse, another as a blessing, questions. The difference is not in their reality, it's in their attitude. Gratitude doesn't add years to your life, but it surely adds life to your years. So, the next time you feel low, pause. Questions. Don't scroll your phone. Don't complain, just take a deep breath and whisper. Thank you. Thank you for breath, moan, for this moment, for this chance to try again. Questions. That one word can open your heart, calm your mind, and invite happiness back home. Because, my dear friends, happiness doesn't begin when life becomes perfect. It begins when you become grateful. Questions. When gratitude becomes your lifestyle, happiness is no longer an occasional visitor. It becomes a permanent resident in your heart. Questions. Comparison, it's something we all do, often without even realizing it. From the moment we wake up, we are surrounded by a world that tells us to look left and right instead of looking within. Questions. We open social media and instantly start comparing our morning coffee to someone else's beach vacation. We compare our car, our clothes, our bodies, our careers, and even our happiness. Questions. But the truth is, the moment you start comparing, you start losing. You lose peace, you lose focus, and eventually you lose joy. Let me share a small story. Questions. Once there was a crow that lived happily on a tree. One day it saw a swan gliding gracefully in the lake. The crow thought, wow, the swan is so white and beautiful. I am black and ugly. Questions. The swan must be the happiest bird in the world. The crow went to the swan and said, you must be the happiest bird on earth. The swan smiled and said, I thought I was until I saw a parrot. Questions. The parrot has beautiful colors and sings so well. I wish I were like him. The crow then went to the parrot and asked, are you happy? The parrot said, I thought I was. Questions. Until I saw a peacock. People come from far away just to see him. I wish I were a peacock. Finally, the crow went to the zoo and saw the peacock dancing beautifully. After the show, questions. When the people left, the crow went near the cage and asked, dear peacock, you are so admired by everyone. You must be the happiest bird. The peacock sighed and said, my friend, questions. I was happy until I was captured. I've seen so many crows flying freely outside. I wish I were a crow, and that's how life is. The crow envies the swan envies the parrot. Questions. The parrot envies the peacock, and the peacock envies the crow. Everyone is looking at someone else's life, wishing they had it, forgetting to see the beauty of their own. Questions. Comparison is a thief that steals your contentment quietly, one thought at a time. In today's world, comparison has become even more dangerous because of what we see online. Questions. We scroll through endless pictures of people living their best life, smiling in perfect selfies, showing dream vacations, celebrating successes. But we forget that it's a highlight reel. Questions. Not the full movie. Nobody posts about their fights, their failures, their insecurities, their lonely nights. You're comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's best moments. Questions. And that's unfair, not to them, but to yourself. When you compare, you create an invisible competition in your head. Questions. You start believing that your worth is measured by how much better or worse you are than someone else. But happiness doesn't come from being better than others. Questions. It comes from being better than yesterday's you. Think of this, a lotus and a rose never compete. The rose blooms beautifully in the garden, and the lotus blossoms gracefully in the pond. Questions. Both are beautiful in their own way, in their own space. But imagine if the rose said, I wish I could live in the pond, or the lotus said, questions. I wish I smelled like the rose. They would both lose their beauty trying to be what they're not. The same happens with us. You were born to bloom in your own unique way. Questions, not to mimic someone else's fragrance. I once met a young man who told me, my Swamiji, my friend, and I started working at the same time. He's already got promoted, drives a luxury car. Questions, and I'm still struggling. Why can't I be like him? I smiled and said, my dear, when two people start at the same point, it doesn't mean they have to reach the same destination. Questions, you are on a different journey. The timing of your life is different. But you see, when you compare your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 10, you will always feel behind. Questions, but when you appreciate where you are, you realize that you're still writing your story. And it's okay if your pace is different. Life isn't a race, it's a journey meant to be experienced. Questions, not competed in. Let's think about appreciation for a moment. When you start appreciating what you have, you begin to feel abundant. If your friend has a new car, instead of saying, questions, why not me? Try saying, good for him. That simple shift turns jealousy into joy. Because the more you celebrate others' success, the more space you create for your own blessings to enter. Questions, appreciation is like sunlight. It makes everything it touches grow. The more you appreciate, the more happiness you attract. And when you learn to appreciate the little things, a warm meal, questions, a loving friend, a quiet evening, you stop waiting for big things to be grateful for. You start realizing that happiness isn't in the extraordinary moments. Questions, it's in the ordinary ones that we often overlook. There's a beautiful saying, a flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. Questions, it just blooms. That's what appreciation teaches us, to bloom where we are planted without envy or insecurity. When you compare, you shrink your joy. When you appreciate, you expand it. Questions, sometimes people ask me, Swamiji, is it wrong to admire others? No, not at all. Admiration is healthy, comparison is harmful. Admiration says, I'm inspired by you. Comparison says, questions, I'm not enough because of you. One fills your heart, the other empties it. Remember, your journey is unique. You may not be where you want to be yet, questions, but you are surely not where you used to be. Every small step is progress, every little effort is growth. Appreciate that. So the next time you find yourself scrolling and feeling inadequate, pause. Questions, remind yourself, this is my life, my pace, my path. The sun and the moon shine at their own time. They never compete, yet both light up the sky beautifully. Questions, when you learn to compare less and appreciate more, you reclaim your peace. You start noticing blessings instead of shortcomings, possibilities instead of problems. You become content. Questions, not because life is perfect, but because you finally realize it's already enough. My dear friends, happiness doesn't come from having what others have. It comes from loving what you have. Questions, right here, right now. Compare less, appreciate more, and you'll find that life was always beautiful. You just had to open your eyes and see it. Questions, there's a beautiful truth about life that many people discover too late. Real happiness doesn't come from what we get, it comes from what we give. The joy of receiving is short-lived, questions, but the joy of giving stays in the heart forever. When you serve others, you don't just make their life better, you make your own life richer. We live in a world where people often say, questions, I'll be happy when I have enough, but enough never seems to come. There's always another desire, another dream, another own more. We collect things, tight likes, questions, and followers, but somehow the more we gather, the emptier we feel inside. That's because happiness doesn't grow through accumulation, it grows through contribution. Questions, think about it. Have you ever helped someone and felt worse afterward? Never. Whether it's helping a friend, feeding a hungry person, questions, or even giving someone your time, every act of kindness adds warmth to your heart. It's nature's law, the more love you give, the more it flows back to you. Let me share a small story. Once, questions, a man was sitting beside a beggar on the street. The beggar looked tired and hungry. The man had only one loaf of bread with him for lunch. For a moment he hesitated. If I share, questions, I'll have less for myself. But something inside him whispered, give. So he broke the bread into two and gave half to the beggar. The beggar smiled, not just with his lips, questions, but with his eyes. That smile filled the man's heart more than any meal could have. That day, he realized something profound. When you feed another person, you feed your own soul too. Questions. Serving others is not always about money or big gestures. It's about the heart with which you do something. You don't have to be rich to give, you just have to be kind. Sometimes a listening ear, questions, a genuine smile, or a few encouraging words can heal more than we imagine. In our daily lives, we meet so many people, co-workers, friends, family. But how often do we pause to ask questions? How are you really? Everyone carries a silent battle. A little compassion can make a huge difference. Even holding the door open, helping someone cross the road, questions, or offering a seat can create ripples of goodness. There's a story about a young boy who was walking along a beach filled with thousands of stranded starfish. He started picking them up, one by one, questions, and throwing them back into the ocean. An old man watching him laughed and said, "Why are you wasting your time? You can't save them all. It won't make any difference." The boy smiled, questions, picked up another starfish, threw it into the sea, and said, "It made a difference to that one." That's what service is about. You may not change the world, but you can change someone's world. Questions. And sometimes that's enough. You see, when we serve others, something beautiful happens inside us. Our problems start to shrink. When you help someone in pain, questions, you realize that your own worries are smaller than you thought. Service changes perspective. It teaches you to look beyond yourself. Once, a man came to me and said, "Swamiji, I feel depressed." Questions. I have everything, yet I'm not happy. I told him, "Go and spend one day helping people who have nothing." He volunteered at an orphanage. When he came back, questions, his eyes were filled with tears, but not of sadness, of realization. He said, "Swamiji, I thought I was giving them something." Questions. But they gave me something greater, gratitude. That's the miracle of service. It heals both the giver and the receiver. When you lift someone, you rise too. When you wipe someone's tears, questions, your heart feels lighter. Even great scientists have found that when we help others, our brains release oxytocin and endorphins, the same chemicals that make us feel joy and peace. Questions. Nature literally rewards kindness. We are wired for compassion. Questions. But service should never come from ego. Look what I did. It should come from love. I'm grateful I had the chance to help. True service doesn't seek recognition. Questions. It seeks connection. It's not about doing something grand. It's about doing something good. I remember once visiting a hospital where a young nurse was taking care of elderly patients. Questions. She smiled constantly even though the work was difficult. I asked her, "How do you stay so cheerful?" She said, "Swamiji, every day I remind myself that one day, questions, someone will have to take care of me too. What I give today will come back tomorrow." That statement stayed with me. What you give always comes back. Maybe not in the same form, questions, maybe not from the same person, but it always returns multiplied. If you plant kindness, you'll harvest joy. If you sow selfishness, you'll reap loneliness. Questions. Serving others doesn't always mean you have to travel far or join an organization. Start small. Serve at home. Appreciate your parents, support your friends, be kind to your colleagues. Questions. The world doesn't need more successful people, it needs more selfless people. Imagine how beautiful life would be if each of us just decided to serve one person each day. One act of kindness. Questions. One moment of care. One word of encouragement. The world would become a garden of compassion. And here's the most beautiful part. The happiness you get from serving others is pure. Questions. It's not dependent on what you own or who you impress. It's born from within. It's the kind of happiness that no money can buy, no storm can shake, and no time can fade. So, my dear friends, questions. If you ever feel low or lost, go out and help someone. Visit an old age home, teach a child, feed a stray animal, or simply smile at a stranger. You'll see how quickly your heart lights up. Questions. Because happiness is not something we keep, it's something we share. Remember this. Wealth decreases when you give it away, but happiness multiplies. The more you spread it, the more it grows. Questions. Life becomes meaningful not by how long you live, but by how much love you give. Serve others not because you have to, but because you want to. Not for recognition. Questions. But for realization that in serving others you discover the deepest joy within yourself. That is where true happiness lies. In a heart that gives. Questions. In life, we cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can always control how we respond to it. Questions. The greatest power a human being possesses is not strength or intelligence. It is the power of choice. Every day, life presents us with moments that test our patience, our emotions, and our peace. Questions. Someone cuts us off in traffic, a coworker criticizes us, a family member says something hurtful, or plans fall apart unexpectedly. In these moments, most of us react instantly, emotionally. Questions, and often regretfully. But those who find true happiness are the ones who respond calmly, wisely, and consciously. There's a big difference between reaction and response. Reaction is impulsive. Questions, automatic and often driven by ego. Response, on the other hand, is thoughtful, measured, and guided by understanding. A reaction is a reflex, a response is a reflection. Questions, and the difference between the two can change your entire day, sometimes your entire life. Let me share a small story. Once a wise monk was walking with his disciple. On their way, questions, a man suddenly came and began shouting at the monk for no reason. The disciple became angry and was ready to respond with harsh words. But the monk stood silently, smiling. After a while, the man left. Questions, still muttering angrily. The disciple asked, "Master, why didn't you say anything? Why did you let him insult you like that?" The monk gently replied, "Questions, if someone gives you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The disciple said, "To the giver, of course." The monk smiled again and said, "Exactly." Questions, in the same way, if someone offers you anger and you don't accept it, that anger stays with them, not you. That's the power of response. Questions, when you learn not to pick up every gift of negativity thrown your way, you protect your peace. People may try to provoke you, life may test you. Questions, but your reaction decides whether you lose your calm or keep your strength. In our daily life, we react to so many things. Traffic jams, rude customers, unexpected delays. Questions, even small inconveniences like slow Wi-Fi. And every time we react, we lose a little bit of our peace. But imagine if we paused for just a few seconds before reacting, took a deep breath. Questions, thought for a moment, and then chose our words and actions. That small pause has the power to transform chaos into calm. Think of boiling water. If you place a potato in it, the potato becomes soft. Questions, but if you place an egg in the same boiling water, it becomes hard. The situation is the same, the water is the same, but the outcome depends on what it touches. Life works the same way. Questions, the same challenge can make one person bitter and another person better. It's not about what happens, It's about how you handle what happens. I once met a man who had lost his job suddenly. Questions. Naturally, he was upset, but instead of reacting with frustration or self-pity, he said, "Maybe this is life's way of redirecting me." He used that time to start a small business, Questions, which later became very successful. Another person in the same situation could have spent months complaining and blaming. The event was the same, Questions, but their responses were different, and so were their destinies. When we react in anger or fear, we often regret it later. Questions. Have you ever sent a message or spoken words in the heat of the moment and then thought, "I wish I hadn't said that"? That's reaction. Questions. It's like throwing a stone into a pond. The ripples keep spreading long after the stone has sunk. But when you respond mindfully, you create ripples of peace instead. Questions. Here's something practical. Whenever something irritates you, pause and ask yourself 3 questions before reacting. Is this worth my peace? Will this matter after 1 week or 1 year? Questions. What's the most graceful way I can handle this? Most of the time, you'll realize that the issue is too small to steal your joy. Let's take an example from daily life. Imagine you're driving, Questions, and someone cuts in front of you suddenly. The usual reaction, you honk, shout, and maybe even curse under your breath. But what if instead you thought, Questions, maybe that person is in an emergency? Even if they're not, your calmness protects you. The other driver might forget the incident in 5 minutes. But if you carry the anger all day, Questions, who suffers more? When you respond with calmness, you don't let others dictate your emotions. You take back control. Because the truth is, nobody can make you angry without your permission. Questions. Situations may be out of your hands, but your reaction is always in your hands. There's a famous saying, you can't control the waves, Questions, but you can learn to surf. That's what response is, learning to surf through the ups and downs of life without drowning in them. I remember a time when I was waiting at an airport, Questions, and the flight got delayed by 4 hours. People were shouting at the staff, complaining, frustrated. One elderly man sitting beside me was calm, reading a book, smiling peacefully. I asked him, Questions, how can you be so relaxed? He said, "Son, getting angry won't make the plane arrive sooner. So I choose to enjoy the time I've been given." His wisdom stayed with me. Questions. Life gives delays to teach us patience, difficulties to teach us strength, and rude people teach us tolerance. Every situation is a test. Are you going to react or respond? Questions. When you choose to respond, you create space between stimulus and action, and in that space lies freedom. Freedom from regret, from conflict, from unnecessary stress. Response is a sign of maturity. Questions. It means you've stopped letting the outside world control your inner world. Even in relationships, many problems arise not because of what's said, but because of how we react. Questions. A small misunderstanding becomes a big fight because both people react emotionally. But when one person pauses, listens, and responds with empathy, peace returns. Sometimes, Questions, silence is the best response. Not every situation deserves your energy. So, my dear friends, remember this. Reacting is easy, responding takes strength. Questions. But the peace you gain from choosing response over reaction is priceless. Don't let anyone's words or actions pull you out of your calm center. The next time someone tries to press your buttons, Questions, just smile and think, thank you for the opportunity to practice patience. A life will always test you, but your response will always define you. When you learn to respond instead of react, Questions, you don't just control your anger, you master yourself. And that mastery is where true happiness begins. Questions. Have you ever caught yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the same conversation or worrying about something that hasn't even happened yet? Questions. You know that moment when your mind says, what if this happens? What if that goes wrong? And before you realize it, you've built an entire movie in your head. A movie filled with fear, questions, doubt, and imaginary disasters. That, my friend, is the exhausting art of overthinking. Overthinking is like being trapped in quicksand. The more you struggle with your thoughts, questions, the deeper you sink. It's like your mind becomes your own worst enemy, turning simple problems into impossible ones. And the irony, 90% of the things we worry about never even happen. Questions. Yet we lose our peace, our sleep, and our joy to things that exist only in imagination. Let me tell you a story. One day, a young man came to me very disturbed. He said, Swamiji, questions. I keep thinking about my future. What if I fail? What if I lose my job? Questions. What if I never find the right person? He had created a list of what ifs so long that he had forgotten to live his what is. I smiled and asked him, do you have a problem right now? Questions. At this very moment, he paused, thought for a second and said, no, not right now. I said, then you are suffering from problems that don't even exist yet. Questions. You are fighting with your imagination. He smiled softly, he understood. Overthinking is like sitting in a rocking chair. It keeps you busy, but it doesn't take you anywhere. Questions. You think and think, but all you do is tire yourself out. Life moves forward only when you act, not when you worry. Imagine this. You're driving your car and suddenly you get lost. Questions. You can either stop, panic, and say, oh no, what if I never find my way? Or you can take a deep breath, check your map, and keep driving. Overthinkers would probably park the car. Questions. Blame themselves for getting lost and spend hours worrying about every possible turn they could have taken. The wise person simply focuses on finding the next right turn. Questions. That's the key. Stop obsessing over what's behind you or what's ahead of you and focus on what's within your control right now. The present moment is the only place where peace exists. Questions. In today's world, overthinking has become a habit. We overanalyze texts. Why did they put a full stop? Are they angry? We overthink decisions. Should I go? Questions. Should I not go? We even overthink our overthinking. Why do I overthink so much? The mind becomes like a browser with 100 tabs open, and we forget where the music is coming from. Questions. The truth is, the mind is a beautiful servant but a terrible master. If you don't control your thoughts, they will control you. And just like you can't stop the waves of the ocean, questions, you can't stop thoughts from coming, but you can choose which ones to ride. Not every thought deserves your attention. Here's a small example from daily life. Questions. Suppose you sent a message to a friend and they didn't reply. What happens next? Your mind starts writing stories. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Questions. Are they ignoring me? Hours later, you're feeling low, replaying imaginary scenarios. Then the next day, the friend replies, sorry, I was busy. Suddenly, all those stories collapse. Questions. The pain you felt wasn't from their silence. It was from your thoughts about their silence. Overthinking is not thinking too much. It's thinking in the wrong direction. Questions. Instead of finding solutions, you create new problems. It's like watering weeds instead of flowers. And soon, the weeds take over your mental garden. When you catch yourself overthinking, pause. Questions. Take a deep breath and remind yourself, right now I am safe. Right now I am okay. Ground yourself in the present. Most of our worries are about the future, things that may never happen. Questions. The present moment rarely hurts us. It's our imagination of the future that does. A wise man once said, if you have one leg in the past and one leg in the future, questions, you're wasting the present. How true. You can't enjoy your meal if you're thinking about yesterday's mistake or tomorrow's meeting. Questions. You can't enjoy a walk if you're mining ahead of you. Overthinking steals to today's peace in exchange for tomorrow's uncertainty. I remember meeting a woman who was constantly anxious. Questions. She said, Swamiji, I'm always thinking about my family, my career, my future. I can't stop. I asked her, do you have a switch at home? She said, yes. Questions, of course. I smiled and said, then use it for your mind too. Learn to switch off sometimes. She laughed, but she understood. The mind needs rest too. When you let go of overthinking questions, you make room for living. You begin to enjoy small things. The sound of rain, a warm cup of tea, a conversation with a loved one. You start noticing life again. Questions, because your mind isn't running ahead of it. Here's a simple practice. Whenever you find yourself lost in thoughts, shift from your mind to your senses. Feel your breath. Questions. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice what you can see or smell. The mind can't overthink and be fully present at the same time. Awareness breaks the cycle. And remember, perfection is a myth. Questions. Many of us overthink because we want everything to be perfect, every decision, every action. But life doesn't reward perfection, it rewards progress. Questions. You don't have to figure everything out right now. Sometimes the best decision is to take a small step and trust that the next one will reveal itself. Think of a river. Questions. It doesn't worry about reaching the ocean, it simply flows, carving its path naturally. That's how life should be. Flow with it, don't fight it. So, questions. The next time your mind starts spiraling with what ifs, pause and ask yourself, what if everything turns out better than I imagined? Because it often does. Questions. Stop replaying the past, it's gone. Stop reliving the future, it hasn't arrived. Instead, start living the present. It's a gift. Questions. And that's why it's called the present. My dear friends, peace doesn't come from controlling every thought. It comes from realizing you don't have to. You can't stop the storm. Questions. But you can stop letting it shake you. When you stop overthinking, you start being. You start feeling. You start living. And that's when life becomes not something to analyze. Questions. But something to experience fully, joyfully, and freely.